One of the things that most inspired me during the years of COVID and lockdown is how people were moved to ensure that their neighbors, their family members were safe and were able to thrive. So the human heart is still beating, and the desire to ensure that everyone has an equal opportunity, I still believe, is alive and well.
This is Hourglass, the podcast for United Way of King County in Seattle. Coming up, a conversation with United Way Worldwide President and CEO Angela Williams. We will also hear about United Way of King County's Our Neighbor Fund and an upcoming Get Out the Vote event. I'm your host, Joe Burris. Thanks for tuning in.
We should always be in this mode of how do we make United Way better? How do we develop ourselves individually and as leaders to be even better so that 100 years from now, the people running United Way can say, wow, I'm grateful for the decisions that the folks made in 2024. I'm grateful for how they showed up. I'm grateful for how they innovated. I'm grateful for the bright ideas that they had to set us on a different trajectory.
United Way Worldwide President and CEO Angela Williams issued that directive to a packed audience at the recent United Way Western Regional Conference in the Las Vegas area. But the call was meant to go well beyond those assembled in the M Resort Spa Casino Ballroom. This is her vision for an organization with locations in 1,100 communities spanning 34 countries and territories, including 95% of the United States. It's a vision she hopes resonates with all United Way staff, from those in Australia who run programs that focus on health, nutrition, and the development of children from birth to age 5, to staff in the Netherlands that help young people manage their financial affairs, to right here in King County, where we at United Way are addressing hunger and housing insecurity. Williams made the Las Vegas area presentation about 24 hours after visiting a United Way in Seoul, South Korea. She also recently gathered with 150 leaders from United Ways across the country for Advocacy Day in Washington, D.C. And later this month, she will visit Montreal for the One Youth Summit, an annual event that convenes young leaders from 190 countries to work on accelerating social impact. With each stop, the United Way CEO, who is also an ordained minister, brings a captivating presence, an unbridled passion, and a sagacious perspective that comes with more than 30 years of service and leadership. Williams took over the helm at United Way in October 2021, after serving in such roles as President and CEO of Easter SEALs and on active duty in the U.S. Air Force Judge Advocates General's Corps. It is easy to get excited about her vision for the nation's third largest charity, particularly at a time as nonprofits worldwide are facing many challenges. According to a 2024 report from the Center for Effective Philanthropy, burnout among both nonprofit staff and leadership remains a top concern among organizations. The report said that nearly 60% of nonprofit leaders say that among their biggest challenges are internal and cultural issues, as well as staff defections to organizations that pay higher salaries. The report said that while 44% of nonprofits in 2023 experienced a surplus during the previous fiscal year, the 32% that carried budget deficits cited lower than expected individual and foundation giving and higher than expected expenses. Williams's call for United Way leaders to make moves now for those who will lead their organizations in years to come might be a prescription for the entire nonprofit landscape. Her service and vision are among the reasons why Nonprofit Times recently named Williams to its Power and Influence Top 50 list for the second year in a row. Hourglass was fortunate to catch up with Williams in the Las Vegas area for a conversation on topics such as her career in service to others, her tenure at the helm of United Way Worldwide, and her views about the nonprofit sector. Here's what she had to say.
I think the through line for my professional career and my personal story comes through with this notion of service to others. So when people look at my bio, they say, oh my gosh, you've done so many what appears to be disparate things. But I want to say there's a through line of service, whether it's service to country or service to others.
And just particularly speaking of that service, in what areas, since you've been the CEO of United Way, in what areas globally and nationally do you see United Way making the most impact?
What I love about United Way is that we have 4 very broad areas of focus. And to highlight them, I would say it's health, economic mobility, youth opportunity, and community resilience. In any of those 4 areas, we can look at how our local United Ways are impacting communities, whether serving children in schools, financial literacy, or access to healthcare and closed-loop solutions, to actually funding or providing programs that relate to environmental justice, clean energy, disaster relief. Those are all the ways in which our local United Ways show up. Our colleagues step up to meet needs as they are happening.
And I just found out that some of the United Ways actually still, there's at least one that still calls itself Community Chest.
Yes. Well, I will say that when we were first founded 137 years ago, we were known as the Community Chest. A lot of people don't know this, but if you've ever played the game Monopoly, the community chest in Monopoly refers to United Way. We changed our name to United Way. However, this notion and spirit of bringing in the resources that the community needs, putting them all together, and then dispersing to those in need is what we do. I just got off a plane from Seoul, South Korea, where I met with our Community Chest of Korea. They are doing fabulous work in South Korea.
And how are you able to relate and stay connected to all the leaders and the partners and stakeholders in an organization that has at least 1,100 organizations within it worldwide? There aren't that many organizations that can have that kind of global reach worldwide. How do you navigate that?
For me, I count it a blessing that we have 1,100 local United Ways that are led by 1,100 local leaders. That's to start with. We have wonderful boards of directors that also do the work. And then I have a great staff at United Way Worldwide. My goal is to make sure that there are tangible touch points with all of our partners, whether I am doing it personally or my team at United Way Worldwide or our local leaders on the ground. We want to make sure that we can provide support, that we deliver clear messages, and let everyone know that we are a global organization that is hyper-locally focused. I want all of our corporate partners, all of our nonprofit partners, all of the governments that we work with at a country level, state level, local level, to know that when you work with United Way, you're working with a global network and a system that can mobilize and have impact locally as well as nationally.
And at United Way of King County, our primary focuses are right now homelessness prevention and food insecurity. And those are our primary ones. We have a lot of other ones as well, but we just started in our neighbor fund, to address those concerns. As you go across the country and across the world, really, are there any topics of concern, issues that you see most United Ways working on?
I would say not only is homelessness an issue, as you mentioned, as well as food insecurity. I think the third thing is around youth opportunity and education.
It looks differently in a lot of the communities from Accra, Ghana, where they actually went to a school, cleaned out an old room at the school, and built bookshelves and brought in books and started a literacy program. To what we do in the UK, in London, we partner with schools where we get employees from our corporations to come in and help mentor the youth and introduce them to this notion of STEM, to our United Ways in the U.S. and abroad that partner with the Dolly Parton Imagination Library. So this notion of how do we ensure that our younger generations, our young people have the tools that they need and are equipped to grow up in a world that's fast changing, in a world that is chaotic, but that they have the skills to be successful and to lead as they become older adults.
Now, you talked about the work in Accra, you talked about the work in UK, and those are just fabulous stories. I mean, can you just think about any stories, any anecdotes that you've been doing this work where you say, you know what, this is why we do this?
What I always love to lift up is what I consider to be a national treasure in the United States and also in Canada, but people don't really know about it. And that is the 211 Health and Human Services Hotline. 211 is an incredible tool that people can either call in to speak to an operator or log on via the internet to let them know they have a crisis or a need and where are the resources that the person can identify. I will tell you the top calls that come in are food insecurity, housing, or a person cannot pay their utility bills. We also receive calls where people are in mental health crisis as well. We operate through the 211 system, the largest national database of resources in the United States. That's huge. No one else has that. And so I want folks to know that we have a mechanism that can tell you when there are trends or potential crises looming within a community. And we can basically raise our hands and tell government officials, other officials, something is happening in this community and we need to address it quickly.
United Way Worldwide is a member of the Power Forward Communities, a coalition committed to transforming the housing sector, saving homeowners and renters money, and helping our nation meet its climate goals. Last month, the coalition was awarded a $2 billion grant from the Environmental Protection Agency to help decarbonize American homes, focusing on low-income and disadvantaged communities. United Way Worldwide also recently received a $25 million donation from philanthropist Mackenzie Scott to support efforts to combat poverty, reduce educational inequality, and boost access to health care. Other milestones United Way has seen during Williams' tenure include offering its My Free Taxes program in both English and Spanish this year for the first time since the program was launched in 2009. Williams is the first Black woman to lead United Way Worldwide at a time when, according to Statista, 30% of nonprofits in the U.S. are led by a CEO of color, and people of color make up 34% of nonprofit board members. Williams says that as nonprofits continue to serve diverse communities worldwide, representation is key.
Having people that represent all aspects of community working as United Way leaders and staff and volunteers is extremely important. We are in the health and human services business. When people with various backgrounds come to us for support, sometimes they feel more comfortable talking to someone who looks like them or speaks the same language if they're coming from a different country and understands their experience. It's a great way to connect when we have all the aspects of diversity represented among our ranks. So to me, it's important that we continue to show up in that manner and that we be intentional in having that as part of our representation with our colleagues as well as with volunteers.
And then lastly, can you just talk a little bit about something that United Way was historically famous for, which is workplace giving? What do you think is right now the workplace giving landscape, and then other aspects of the donor landscape? And how would you like to see communities connect with United Ways, the ones that are right in their backyards, more from talent and treasure and time?
What I think is so special and unique about United Way is that for decades, we've had a wonderful relationship with various corporate partners. One thing that we always know is that corporations are organisms in they're organisms because they employ people that live in community. And so by extension, when people show up to work, they're coming in as the community to work on their jobs. So corporations have a responsibility to care for their employees, and they have to recognize what is going on in the community in which they operate. As having United Way as a partner is great because as companies want to figure out how to be good civic leaders, then United Way can help them to identify the issues that are in a community, and the corporations can help fund solutions for what's happening in community. So my hope is that we continue to do that. I will say that as the decades have progressed, as technology and platforms for giving have evolved, employees don't necessarily need to give through their corporate giving campaigns, employee giving campaigns, because they can give directly through Facebook or through other technology platforms. So we have seen a decline in employees giving through their corporations. However, I will say that does not negate the importance of having that relationship that United Way has with our corporate partners. I will also say that philanthropy across the globe has really declined. And so there have been a number of different studies that show that the number one place for giving used to be the church. However, we've also seen across all denominations, religions, that church attendance has declined. And so therefore, we're seeing a decline even in that. So overall, it's not just employee giving campaigns in companies as an isolated incident. All the other streams have also shifted. The final thing I would say, though, as it relates to giving and philanthropy, all of us are philanthropists, every single person. And as you mentioned, we can give of our time, our talent, or our treasure. One of the things that most inspired me during the years of COVID and lockdown is how neighbors helped neighbors and how people were moved to ensure that their neighbors, their family members were safe and were able to thrive. So the human heart is still beating, and the desire to ensure that everyone has an equal opportunity, I still believe is alive and well in humanity.
Angela Williams, the CEO, President of United Way Worldwide, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for allowing me to be here.
To learn more about United Way Worldwide, log on to unitedway.org. Our neighbors are doing their best to keep food on the table, but it's not been easy. During the COVID-19 pandemic, grocery prices rose to their biggest increase in 50 years. Most of the federal dollars that addressed the food crisis during the pandemic are gone, but grocery bills remain high. That's why United Way of King County has launched the Our Neighbor Fund to invest in strategies that will feed families in the coming year. Our Neighbor Fund will help expand our home grocery program to provide 5,000 families with free groceries each week. and it will help an additional 100 schools in King County implement the Breakfast After the Bell program, impacting 49,000 students. We're asking you to please make a gift to the Our Neighbor Fund so that we can serve more of our neighbors. For more information or to make a donation, log on to uwkc.org/donate. Join us for the civic engagement event, Get Out the Vote, Your Voice Matters, at the Langston Hughes Performing Arts Institute in Seattle on September 25th at 6 p.m. Co-hosted by YPC Seattle, United Way of King County's Emerging Leaders 365, Seattle Metro Chamber's Young Professionals Network, and Young Nonprofit Professionals Network. The event will feature discussions with local and civic leaders about the critical role of voting, the significance of local elections, and key issues on the ballot. For more information, log on to uwkc.org/events. At United Way of King County, we are working side by side with communities to build an equitable future for everyone. Hourglass United Way is a podcast that highlights how we and our partners spend time making a difference in our communities. Our work is made possible by the generous donations from people like you. Please send comments and suggestions about our podcast to hourglassunitedway@gmail.com. To learn more about our work or to support United Way, log on to uwkc.org. I'm your host, Joe Burris. Thanks for listening. Until next time.